I still remember the exact moment when my world shattered. The sound of a suitcase zipper slicing through the silence. The clinking of expensive jewelry as she packed. The scent of her designer perfume lingering in the air. The room we once shared, filled with laughter and whispered promises, had turned into a battlefield where I stood alone, outnumbered, outclassed, and utterly disposable. Victoria was leaving me. Her hands moved with mechanical efficiency, folding clothes I had once pulled off her with so much love. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just the cold, ruthless precision of someone who had made up their mind long before they said the words out loud. "Nathan, this isn't working anymore," she said, her voice clipped, devoid of the warmth I once knew. "I can't do this." I swallowed hard, my jaw tightening as I tried to find the right words. But my mind was a chaotic storm of emotions. My wife, the woman who once clung to me in the dead of night whispering that I was her home, was leaving. Not because I cheated, not because I hurt her, but because I wasn't good enough. Because her family had told her so. I should have seen this coming. Maybe I had. Maybe I just didn't want to believe that the woman I loved could be so easily manipulated by Eleanor Whitmore, the matriarch of the family, a woman who breathed wealth and power the way ordinary people breathed air. She stood by the doorway, arms crossed over her expensive silk blouse, watching this spectacle unfold with a thin, satisfied smile. "You should have known better, Nathan," Eleanor said, voice dripping with the condescending tone she had perfected over decades. "Did you really think this could last? That she would stay with someone who has nothing?" That word, nothing. I clenched my fists. "I'm not nothing," I ground out, my voice rough. "You have no wealth, no connections, no legacy." She gestured around the penthouse as if it was hers to dismiss. This was temporary, a distraction for Victoria. Victoria flinched at her mother's words, but she didn't refute them, didn't argue, didn't defend me. I turned to her, heart pounding. "You don't really believe that, do you?" She hesitated. That hesitation was a blade to my chest, a slow, agonizing realization that she wasn't just leaving. She was agreeing. "Nathan, you don't understand," she murmured. Rubbing her temples like this was hard for her, like she was the one hurting. "No," I snapped, stepping closer. "Explain it to me, Victoria. Help me understand. Because last I checked, we made vows. We built a life together. We fought. For this. And now, because your mother thinks I'm not good enough, you're throwing it all away." She exhaled, closing her eyes briefly before looking at me. "You don't belong in my world, Nathan. You never did." The words hit harder than any punch I had ever taken. I let out a hollow laugh, shaking my head. "Wow." Just like that, she folded her arms across her chest as if shielding herself from my disappointment. "It's not just me. It's my father, my brother, my entire family. They'll never accept you and I." She bit her lip before whispering, "I can't fight them anymore." The final nail in the coffin. I stared at the woman I once thought would stand by me through everything, and suddenly I saw her for what she really was. Someone who had never been willing to fight for me. Eleanor stepped forward, a victorious gleam in her eyes. "You should leave now, Nathan. Victoria has made her decision." I turned to my wife one last time. "Tell me you don't love me anymore." I challenged, my voice low. "Say it, and I'll walk away." Victoria's throat bobbed as she swallowed, her lips parting, but no words came. "That's what I thought." I muttered, the silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then finally she exhaled and whispered, "This isn't about love. It's about reality." Reality. Her reality was wealth, power, prestige. My reality, hard work, late nights, and the naive belief that love was enough to bridge the gap between our worlds. I reached into my pocket, my fingers curling around my wedding ring. It felt heavier than ever, like it had absorbed all the weight of my shattered expectations. Slowly, I pulled it off and placed it on the marble counter. The sound of metal meeting stone echoed through the room. I hope it was worth it. I said, my voice idly calm. Victoria's eyes flickered with something. Regret, sadness, guilt. But it was too late. Without another word, I grabbed my jacket and walked past Eleanor, not sparing her another glance. The scent of her overpowering perfume filled my nostrils, but all I could smell was betrayal. "Goodbye, Nathan," Victoria called softly. As I reached the door, I didn't look back. I stepped out of that penthouse into the cold night air and stood there for a long moment, breathing it in. I had entered that building as a husband, a believer, a fool. I was leaving as a man who had lost everything. And yet, deep down, beneath the heartbreak, beneath the humiliation, I felt something else stirring, a dangerous burning ember in my chest, a promise one day I would be the man they regretted losing. They would see my name everywhere, spoken with admiration and respect. They would hear whispers of my success, of my rise, of my empire. And when that day came, when our paths inevitably crossed again, I wouldn't need revenge. I would simply smile. Rock bottom isn't a moment. It's a slow, excruciating descent. The night I left Victoria's penthouse, I had nowhere to go, no plan, no safety net, no home. The world outside felt different, colder. The city lights that once held the promise of opportunity and ambition now looked harsh, mocking. I walked for hours past the sleek glass buildings where men in tailored suits shook hands over multi-million-dollar deals, past the hotels I couldn't afford, past the restaurants where Victoria and I used to dine. By the time I reached Marcus' apartment, my feet ached and my pride was in shambles. I knocked, and when he opened the door, his face went from annoyance to concern. In an instant, "Jesus, you look like hell. Feel like it too," I muttered, stepping past him. His place was a mess. Empty takeout containers, half-folded laundry, a couch that had seemed better days, but right then, it was a palace compared to the street. He shut the door and turned to face me. What happened? I dropped onto the couch and let out a long breath. Victoria left me. Marcus didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked vindicated. Took her long enough. I shot him a blare. Not the time. He shrugged. I told you, man, you were playing house with a woman whose family thinks people like us are background characters in their world. You really thought she was going to fight for you? I hated how much that stung. I shook my head, rubbing my temples. I thought love mattered more than money. Marcus let out a bitter chuckle. Love's a luxury, bro. Rich people can afford it because they've got nothing else to worry about. Us? We're too busy surviving. His words hit hard because, for the first time in a long time, I was back in survival mode. Marcus grabbed a beer from the fridge and tossed one to me. "You can crash here for as long as you need. Thanks," I murmured, cracking it open. But the reality of my situation hit. The next morning I woke up on Marcus' lumpy couch to the sound of his shower running and the unmistakable scent of burnt coffee. For the first few minutes I forgot I was no longer in the penthouse. Forgot Victoria had chosen her family over me. Forgot I had nothing. Then it all came rushing back. I reached for my phone. No texts, no missed calls. Victoria was really done with me. I dragged myself to the tiny bathroom, splashed water on my face and stared at my reflection. Dark circles under my eyes, stubble creeping along my jaw, a look of dull emptiness that I barely recognized. This wasn't me. I needed a job, a place of my own, something. But that's the funny thing about falling from grace. People love to watch, but no one's there to catch you. I sent out dozens of applications that day. Emails, LinkedIn messages, follow-ups to old contacts. Nothing. Calls went unanswered. Messages were read and ignored. It didn't take long to realize why I had spent the last few years living in Victoria's world, attending events with the Whitmore, making connections in circles where my last name didn't belong. Every opportunity one had was linked to her family's influence. Now that I wasn't her husband, I was just another nobody. By the end of the week, I had depleted what little savings I had left. Rent was out of the question, so I stayed at Marcus Place, humiliated and restless, watching my life disintegrate, one unpaid bill at a time. The worst part, I started to believe Eleanor Whitmore was right. Maybe I was nothing. After all, 2 months passed, and I had nothing to show for it. Marcus did his best to help. He got me a bartending gig at a rundown pub, just enough to scrape by. But every night I stood behind that bar pouring drinks for men who looked like I used to look. Confident, successful, untouchable. And it made me sick. One night I served a former colleague from the finance firm I once worked at. He didn't recognize me at first. Then his eyes widened. "Nathan, holy shit. T-Man, what are you doing here?" I forced a smirk, just a keeping busy. He let out a low whistle. Damn. Heard about the divorce, but I didn't think it was this bad. I swallowed my pride and shrugged. Yeah, well, life happens. He glanced around as if making sure no one else was watching, then leaned in. "Look between us. The Whitmores put out word that you're blacklisted in finance. No one wants to touch you, man." The air left my lungs. "You're joking." He shook his head. "They made sure you wouldn't get a second chance. Apparently, Eleanor doesn't want you embarrassing the family name any further." Embarrassing the family name? I had spent years killing myself to be part of their world, only to be tossed aside and erased like I never existed. I barely made it through the rest of my shift by the time I got home. Marcus was on the couch, flipping through channels. He glanced up. "What's with the face?" I grabbed a beer, took a long swig, then exhaled sharply. "They blacklisted me," I muttered. Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean the Whitmores made sure I'll never work in finance again. They shut every door before I could even knock." Marcus let out a long breath. "Damn." I nodded. "Yeah, damn." We sat in silence for a moment before he turned to me. "So what now?" That was the question, wasn't it? What now? For the past 2 months, I had been playing defense, licking my wounds, waiting for some kind of salvation. But no one was coming to save me. No job offers, no second chances, no lifelines. I had 2 choices: stay bitter and let the Whitmore define me, or burn their entire narrative to the ground. Slowly, I leaned forward, gripping the beer bottle in my hands. "I have an idea," I said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That sounds dangerous." A slow, determined smile crept across my lips. "It is." That night, something changed. I stopped thinking like a victim and started thinking like a man with nothing to lose. The Whitmore thought they had buried me, but they didn't realize I was the kind of man who thrived in the dark. Because when you've got nothing left, the only direction to go is up. And I was about to make a comeback they'd never see coming. You know what's funny about hitting rock bottom? At first it crushes you. The weight of failure sits on your chest, makes it hard to breathe. Every rejection, every closed door, every humiliating reminder of how far you've fallen, it all piles up until you start to believe that maybe this is it. Maybe you were never meant to succeed. Maybe they were right. But then something shifts, not all at once, not in some dramatic movie moment. It happens in the quiet, in the exhaustion, in the final breaking point, where you realize that no one is coming to save you. No second chances, no lucky breaks, just you. And that's when you stop asking for a way back in and start building your own way out. That was the moment I stopped thinking like a man who lost everything and started thinking like a man who had nothing left to lose. And nothing is more dangerous than a man with nothing to lose. I was still broke, still sleeping on Marcus' couch, still stuck bartending at night to afford gas money. But I had an idea. A year before everything fell apart, I had been playing around with an idea for a business management app, a tool that could help small businesses track finances, manage employees, and automate customer engagement. Back then, it was just a concept, something I never had time to develop because I was too busy trying to fit into Victoria's world. Now I had nothing but time, so I dusted off my old notes, opened my laptop, and started piecing together the skeleton of what would become Vanguard Solutions. I spent days watching coding tutorials, teaching myself everything I didn't know. The app needed to be simple, powerful, and intuitive, something that small business owners, not just corporations, could use. I barely slept during the day I worked on the app. At night, I went to the bar pouring drinks for men who reminded me of who I used to be. It was humiliating, but humiliation is a great motivator. I told myself one day I won't be behind the bar. I'll own the whole damn building. After 2 months, I had a working prototype. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to show someone I didn't have the luxury of a network in anymore. So I went where the real hustlers were. Small business meetups, startup events, anywhere entrepreneurs gathered. I walked into my first pitch meeting wearing my only suit, the one I used to wear to Whitmore Charity Gas. Now, a little loose on me, the investor, a guy named Daniel Weiss, listened for 5 minutes before cutting me off. This is solid, but I don't see it competing with bigger firms. He said you don't have the resources or connections to scale. I clenched my jaw. I just need someone to take a chance, he sighed, tapping his pen against his desk. Nathan, the Whitmores blacklisted you. No one wants to invest in a guy they think is toxic to their social circles. I can't risk my reputation there. I wasn't some struggling entrepreneur. I was a man with a target on his back. I shook his hand and left my heart pounding with frustration. It wasn't just rejection. It was deliberate exile. They didn't just want me to fail. They wanted to make sure. I never even got a chance to try. So I made a decision. If no one would open a door for me, I would build my own. One night, after another long shift, I stopped by a late-night coffee shop, exhausted and ready to quit for the 100th time. That's when I met Julian Carter. He was sitting at the counter reading something on his tablet. I wouldn't have noticed him if not for the brief moment when he looked up, stared at me, and said, "You've got the look of a man who's either about to do something stupid or something brilliant." I smirked tiredly. Could go either way. He gestured toward the seat next to him. "Tell me about it." Something in his voice made me hesitate. Not pity, not curiosity, genuine interest. I sat, told him about the app, the rejections, the Whitmore, shutting every door. He listened, nodding, barely interrupting until I finished. Then he smiled. "You remind me of myself 20 years ago." I frowned. "You're a billionaire investor," and before that he leaned forward. I was some kid nobody believed in. I know what it's like to fight your way up when the world tells you to stay down. I exhaled sharply. So what are you saying? He slid his business card across the counter. I'm saying, show me a working version of this in 60 days, and I'll consider backing you. My fingers tightened around the card. Why would you do that? He grinned because the best invents are the ones everyone else is too blind to see. I worked like a man possessed, Marcus. Let me turn his tiny apartment into a development lab. Cables everywhere. Coffee cups stacked like trophies of exhaustion. I co-tested, fixed bugs, reworked the UI, and relearned how to hustle the money. I made bartending went into servers, software licenses, everything I needed to get a fully functional version of the app running. I barely ate, barely slept. Failure here wasn't an option. Then, on the 59th day, I sent Julian an email. Meet me tomorrow. It's ready. And to the backlace the next afternoon, I walked into Julian Carter's office, heart hammering. I gave him the demo, showed him every feature, every capability. When I finished, he leaned back, steepling his fingers. This is good, he said. Finally, really good. I exhaled, waiting. Then he smirked. All right, I'm in. $500,000 for 20% equity. The air left my lungs. You're serious? As a heart attack. He extended his hand. What are you saying, Nathan? Ready to take the first step toward becoming the kind of man they never saw coming? I gripped his hand and shook. Hell yes. That night, Marcus and I sat on his balcony drinking the cheapest whiskey we could find. To the comeback, he said, raising his glass. I clinked mine against his to Vanguard Solutions because this was it. The first step toward building an empire. The Whitmore thought they had erased me. They had no idea. I wasn't just coming back. I was coming back to dominate. There's something surreal about watching your life shift from survival mode to full-throttle acceleration. For months, I had been drowning, struggling just to breathe. Now I was driving 100 miles an hour, and I had the wheel. Julian Carter's $500,000 investment wasn't just about the money. It was a signal, a green light, that someone believed in me, that I wasn't just some discarded failure left in the shadow of the Whitmore. But I didn't let the high of the deal cloud my focus. I knew what this was an opportunity, not a guarantee, so I worked every single day from sunrise to the dead of night. I poured everything I had into Vanguard Solutions. The first step, hiring the right people. I couldn't build a tech empire alone, so I handpicked a small, elite team. Developers, designers, and business strategists who weren't afraid of risk. People who, like me, had something to prove. People who weren't born into success, but were hungry enough to take it. With the funding secured, we went all in on refining the app. Vanguard Solutions was designed to streamline business operations. Bookkeeping, payroll, marketing, automation, the kind of software that small businesses desperately need but couldn't afford from corporate giants. I personally pitched the app to local businesses, knocking on doors, attending networking events, getting rejected more times than I could count. And then finally we landed our first major client, Harborview Hotels, a mid-sized hotel chain looking for a simple, scalable management tool. Their coup was skeptical at first. Why should we trust a startup with our entire business system? I looked him dead in the eye because we were hungrier than the big guys, which means we'll work twice as hard. To make sure you don't regret it, he signed a 6-month trial contract. The next day after Harborview momentum picked up, more businesses started signing on. Referrals began spreading like wildfire, and soon, Vanguard Solutions was everywhere. Then came the press. One day I got a call from a journalist at the Financial Post. "We've been hearing about your company's rapid rise," she said. "We'd love to feature you in our Startups to Watch section." I agreed, not realizing just how big of a deal this was. A week later, the article dropped and suddenly investors were calling me, instead of the other way around. Vanguard Solutions is disrupting the small business software industry with its intuitive, cost-effective model. Founder Nathan Cole, a former finance executive who built his company from the ground up, is proving that innovation doesn't just belong to the billion-dollar firms. There was one sentence that stood out more than the rest. A man the industry once overlooked is now becoming impossible to ignore. I read that line over and over because that was it. I was no longer forgotten. I was becoming a player. It had been nearly a year since I left the Whitmore's world for the first time. I wasn't just surviving, I was winning. And then one evening my phone rang a number I didn't recognize. I answered Nathan Cole. A familiar voice filled the line. Victoria. For a second I froze. Then I smiled. Victoria, to what do I owe the pleasure? She hesitated. I saw the article about you. Ah, I said, leaning back in my chair. Didn't think you kept up with the business world outside your father's empire. That's not fair, she murmured. I laughed low and cold. Isn't it? You made your choice, Victoria. She exhaled. I didn't call the fight. I wanted to say I'm proud of you. I stared at the city lights outside my office window, feeling absolutely nothing at her words. There was a time when I would have given anything to hear her say that. But now, it meant nothing. Thanks, I said, but I didn't do this for you. A beat of silence. Can we meet? She asked. I let out a slow breath. Why? I want to talk, catch up. I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. You don't want to catch up. You want to see if I'm still the man you walked away from, Nathan. Goodbye, Victoria. I hung up then for the first time in a long time. I laughed because she thought she was reaching out to the same man she left, but I wasn't that man anymore. That man had died the night she walked away. A month later, Vanguard Solutions was invited to the National Business Tech Summit, the biggest corporate networking event of the year. And guess why? Who was sponsoring it? The Whitmore Group. I accepted the invitation immediately. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because I wanted them to see me exactly as I was now, the man they discarded, now standing at the top of the industry without them. The night of the event, I walked into the grand ballroom of the Whitmore International Hotel, dressed in a tailored suit that I bought with my own money. I wasn't just attending this event. I was a guest speaker. As I mingled with investors and CEOs, I felt eyes on me, not just from Victoria, but from Eleanor Whitmore herself. I turned, meeting her gaze across the room. She looked older, more cautious. She didn't smile. She didn't approach. Because, for the first time, I wasn't beneath her. I was beyond her reach. Later that night, as I took the stage to speak, I made sure to look directly at her table. Success, I said, isn't about where you come from. It's about resilience, innovation, and proving that no one, not even the so-called elite, gets to define your worth. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped down from the podium, Eleanor turned away, her lips pressed into a thin line. Victoria just sat there staring at me. I walked past them, not as the man they cast aside, but as the man they would never be able to ignore again because I had done the impossible. I had beaten them not with vengeance, not with hatred, but with success. That night I left the gala with my head held high. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their acceptance. I had built something greater than them, and that was the real victory. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply proving them wrong. Not just your bank account, not just your reputation. It changes how people see you, and, more importantly, how they treat you. People who once dismissed you suddenly want to reconnect. The same doors that were slammed in your face magically swing open, and sometimes the ones who walked away find their way back. Which is why it was only a matter of time before I saw Victoria again. a week after the business summit. I was at an exclusive investor networking event. Marcus had practically shoved me into attending, saying, "You need to start rubbing shoulders with the real power players. Now, man, play the game." So I played. The venue was a sleek, high-rise pined house overlooking the city skyline. Servers walked around with crystal glasses of champagne. Expensive suits filled the room, and the air buzzed with power and money. And then a familiar voice behind me, Nathan. I turned Victoria. She looked different. The same polished, elegant exterior. But something about her felt off, like she wasn't as sure of herself anymore. Like maybe she had realized she made a mistake. I let my gaze drift over her. "Taking my time, Nathan," she repeated, like she needed to say my name twice, to believe it was really me standing there. I sipped my drink, keeping my expression neutral. "Victoria." The flicker of something crossed her face. Nervousness. Uncertainty. "I didn't think I'd see you here," she said, adjusting the strap of her designer clutch. I smiled, slow and deliberate. I'd say the same, but I figured it was only a matter of time. Her, how furrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I took a step closer, lowering my voice just enough. "It means I knew that eventually you'd come looking." She exhaled sharply. "Nathan, that's not what," I cut in smoothly. "Not what I think. Not because you saw my name on the guest list and suddenly remembered I existed." Her jaw tightened. "You really think that little of me?" I tilted my head, pretending to think. "Well, let's see. A year ago you told me you wanted nothing to do with me, walked away without looking back, and now here you are." She looked away, biting her lip. "Good. Let it sink in." "I made a mistake." She murmured the words. Just hung there. I let them sit, let them linger, because I wasn't going to make this easy for her. When I didn't respond, she sighed and took a hesitant step closer. "I thought I was doing what was best." "My family. Ah, yes, your family." I let out a low chuckle, shaking my head. "The same people who blacklisted me for my entire industry. The same ones who told you I was nothing and you agreed." She flinched. "I didn't agree. You didn't fight." I corrected my voice. "Calm. You let them push me out like I was disposable. And now what? You want to rewrite history?" Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "Nathan, please." She looked at me with something I never thought I'd see in her eyes. Regret, not pity, not superiority, just pure, undeniable regret. But the thing about regret, it's useless when the damage is already done. I leaned in just enough that she had to look up at me. "You know, it's funny," I said. "Quietly, a year ago, I would have given anything to hear you say you made a mistake." She exhaled, and now I smiled. "Now I don't care." She blinked, stunned. "Nathan." I took a slow sip of my drink, savoring the moment. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about anger. It was about clarity. The kind that only comes when you finally stop wanting what once destroyed you. "You think we could have a second chance?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I studied her, pretending to consider it. Then I shook my head. "No." She inhaled sharply. "Just like that?" I laughed. "No, Victoria, not just like that. Like this." I gestured around us at the crowd, the event, the life I built without her. "See the man you left, the one you thought wasn't good enough. He doesn't exist anymore," I said smoothly, "and the man standing in front of you, he doesn't need you." She opened her mouth and closed it, because what could she say? She had no power here, no leverage, no second chance. She had lost me for good. Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her clutch back. I really did love you, she whispered like it mattered. Now I nodded, smiling slightly. I know her eyes flickered with something hope. Maybe I let her have it just for a second. Then I stepped past her, my voice quiet but sharp. But love wasn't enough for you, and now it's not enough for me. She turned to watch me walk away, her breathing unsteady, and I didn't look back. Not this time. Not ever again. Some people will always think they can come back, that no matter what they did, they'll still own a part of you. Victoria thought that she thought I was still the man waiting for her to come back. But that version of me, he was gone. And when she realized that that's when, she knew she didn't just lose me. She lost the best things she ever had. And that was the best revenge of all. The people who once looked down on you suddenly look up to you. The ones who thought they had all the power. They realized they have none. Victoria must have thought our conversation at the investor event was a one-time thing, a fluke, a coincidence. But life has a funny way of making sure the people who hurt you watch every inch of your success unfold. And now she wasn't just seeing it. She was on the outside looking in. 2 weeks after the investor gala, Vanguard Solutions landed its biggest deal yet, a $20 million partnership with Roland Enterprises, one of the largest investment firms in the country. The news spread fast. I woke up to calls from reporters, messages from old colleagues, even cold emails from investors who had ignored me months ago. But the best part, the headline that ran across business news outlets everywhere. From blacklisted to billionaire Nathan. Cole's meteoric rise. I read it twice. Then I laughed because the last time my name had been in the media, it was attached to Victoria, to the Whitmore family, to the man they'd discarded. But now my name stood on its own. The Roland deal came with one major requirement, an exclusive business summit where I would be a keynote speaker, a night where the biggest players in the industry would be gathered in one room, a night where Victoria, Eleanor, and the entire Whitmore family would be in attendance. When I saw their names on the guest list, I smiled because I wasn't going to that event as the man they underestimated. I was going as the man they could never ignore. Again, the night of the event, I walked into the grand ballroom of the Whitmore International Hotel, a place I once wasn't good enough to belong in. The chandeliers sparkled, champagne glasses clinked, and the room was filled with CEOs, investors, and powerhouses. And then I saw her, Victoria, standing across the room, drink in hand. Frozen in place as her eyes locked onto me. She wasn't expecting me, not like this, not as a guest of honor, not as the most talked about name in the industry. She took a slow step forward, hesitated, then changed course, like she didn't know if she could face me again. Smart choice, because now she wasn't the one walking away. I was, as I moved through the event, shaking hands, making deals. I caught Eleanor Whitmore's gaze from across the room, the same woman who once told me I was nothing, the same woman who thought she had erased me. Now she was watching me hold the room. I saw her whisper something to her husband, saw the tension in her shoulders because for the first time she wasn't in control. I was talking to a potential partner. When a familiar voice broke through Nathan, I turned Victoria. She looked up at me, eyes scanning my face like she was searching for something. The man she used to know. Maybe, but he wasn't there. Victoria, I greeted, calm, unreadable. She let out a breath, a small smile tugging at her lips. I wasn't expecting you here. I tilted my head. Why not? Did you think I'd still be bartending? She flinched. Good. I didn't mean, I smirked. Relax. I know exactly what you meant. She shifted awkwardly, tapping her fingers against her glass. I heard about everything you've built. Vanguard Solutions, the Roland deal. It's incredible. I nodded, taking a sip of my drink. It is silence, stretched between us. She was waiting for something for me to crack, for me to say that I missed her, for me to give her an opening back into my life, but I wouldn't, because now she was just another person in the crowd. You know, she said softly, I've been thinking a lot about us. I raised an eyebrow. Have you? She nodded, biting her lip like she wasn't sure if she should continue. I know I hurt you, she admitted. I know I let my family control me, but Nathan, when I see you now, I realize I might have made the biggest mistake of my life. I let her words sink in because they were exactly what I once dreamed of hearing. But now they meant nothing. I smiled, slow and measured. Victoria, let me ask you something, I said, setting my glass down. She nodded. Hope? Full? Anything. If I were still struggling, still, that man you walked away from, would we be having this conversation? Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. I chuckled. That's what I thought. Her face pert. Nathan, it's not like that. It's exactly like that. I leaned in, voice low. You didn't want me when I had nothing, and now you want me because I have everything. She swallowed hard. I never stopped loving you. You, I smiled. That's the difference between us, Victoria. She blinked. I took a step closer, voice steady. You loved me when I was at my lowest, but I only love the version of me that exists now. Her face crumbled, and for the first time since she left me, she looked like the one who was lost, because she wasn't rejecting me anymore. I was rejecting her. I stepped back, adjusted my cufflinks, and gave her one last nod. Take care, Victoria. She exhaled shakily. Is that it? I smiled. That's all that's left. And then I walked away, not because I needed to, but because I could, and that was the moment I knew. She wasn't the one who left me behind. I was the one who outgrew her. Some people will spend their entire lives looking back at what they lost. Victoria would be one of them, because she had a seat at my table once and she threw it away. Now she was just another person watching me from the outside. And me. I was exactly where I was always meant to be. At the top without her. It doesn't come when you demand it. It comes when you no longer need to demand it. For months, I had fought my way out of obscurity, rejection, and betrayal. I had clawed my way back from nothing, built a name, a company, a reputation that people couldn't ignore, and now I had everything they once told me I would never have. And that meant I could walk away from anything without looking back after. The investor gala, I thought that was it. That she'd finally gotten the message. That she'd finally accepted that she lost me. But some people, they don't let go until they've exhausted every last opportunity. Which is why, 2 weeks later, I found myself face to face with Victoria once again. I was at the Vanguard Solutions headquarters, finishing up a late-night meeting, when my assistant, Olivia, poked her head into the room. Sir, someone's here to see you? I didn't even have to ask. I already knew. I exhaled slowly, leaned back in my chair and said, Send her in. And sure enough, Victoria walked in. She looked nervous, like she knew this was her last chance. I didn't stand, didn't greet her, just watched, because this time I wasn't the one fighting to be seen. She was. She hesitated at the door before finally walking in her heels, clicking softly against the floor. This is impressive, she said, looking around the glass-walled office. You've built something incredible. I nodded, expression unreadable. I know. She bit her lip, then met my eyes. Nathan, I held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. I already know what you're going to say. I said you're going to tell me you miss me, that you regret leaving, that you thought you were doing what was best, but now you realize it was a mistake. She swallowed hard, and if I said all of that. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the desk. Then I'd tell you what I told you before she blinked, which is I let out a slow breath. That it's too late. Silence. Heavy, uncomfortable. For the first time, she was the one feeling the weight of rejection. Victoria sighed, lowering herself into the chair across from me. Nathan, I know. I hurt you. Stop, I said firmly. She flinched. I let my gaze settle on her, unyielding. You didn't just hurt me. You threw me away. You made me believe I wasn't worth fighting for. She exhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the chair. I thought I was doing what was best at the time. My family. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Your family didn't force you to leave. You chose to leave. Don't blame them for your decision. Her lips parted, like she wanted to argue, but she didn't, because she knew I was right. She lowered her gaze. I thought you'd be angry, she admitted. I shook my head. I was for a long time. She swallowed, and now I smiled. Now I just don't care. She sucked in a breath, and I saw at the exact second she realized she had lost me for good. Because there's nothing scarier than indifference. Hatred means there's still an emotional connection, but indifference means you've moved on. And I had a long time ago. She stood up slowly as if waiting for me to stop her. I didn't. She hesitated. So that's it. I leaned back in my chair. That's all that's left. She let out a soft, humorless laugh. I guess I deserve this. I didn't respond because honestly, she did. She took one last look at me, then shook her head. I really did love you, she whispered. I smiled. Fought not enough. Her breath hitched. And then she walked away for the first time, not because she had the power to leave me, but because I let her go. After she left, I sat there for a long moment. Not because I was sad, not because I regretted anything, but because I finally felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. Victoria was a chapter in my story, a lesson, but not the ending. And as I looked around my office, at the empire I built without her, I realized I wouldn't change a damn thing. Because if she hadn't left, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be this. And that was the greatest gift she could have ever given me. The next morning I got a text from an unknown number. Victoria, I hope you find happiness, Nathan. I stared at the message for a long second. Then without hesitation I deleted it. No response, no lingering thoughts, just a clean break. Because for the first time in my life I didn't need to prove anything to her. I had already won. And the best part? I didn't need her to see it. I just needed to keep moving forward. Because the future, it was mine, and I wasn't looking back. Some people will always believe they can come back, that no matter what they did, they'll always have a place in your life. Victoria thought she could undo everything with a few well-placed words. But the truth, she lost me the moment she chose to walk away. And now she was just someone I used to know. And me? I was just getting started. There's a strange kind of silence that comes when you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. It's not the silence of loss or emptiness. It's the silence of contentment, the kind that tells you you've already won. The day after Victoria walked away for the last time, I woke up to a sky painted in shades of gold and orange. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. No anger, no bitterness, just peace. She had been a storm in my life once, a force that shook everything I thought I knew. But now she was just a memory. And me. I was a man no longer haunted by what could have been, My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I already knew who it was before I opened it. Victoria, I hope you find happiness, Nathan. I stared at the message for exactly 3 seconds. Then, without hesitation, I deleted it. No response, no lingering thoughts, no second-guessing. Just a clean, effortless erasure. Because what else was there to say? She was a chapter. One had already finished reading, and my story. It was still being written. Vanguard Solutions had grown into something even I hadn't anticipated. After the Roland deal, we expanded into multiple industries. Retail, hospitality, even healthcare. Investors lined up eager to be part of the empire I built from nothing, and me. I had gone from being blacklisted by the Whitmore to being one of the most influential names in business. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same circles that once whispered about my failure were now desperate to align themselves with my success. But the best part, I didn't need them. I had built something so solid, so untouchable, that no one's approval could make or break me anymore. A few weeks later, I sat down for an exclusive interview with Forbes. The journalist, a sharp-eyed woman named Maya Grant, studied me for a moment before asking, "So tell me, Nathan, what drives you now?" It was a loaded question. A year ago, my answer would have been revenge. I would have said something about proving people wrong, making the Whitmores regret ever doubting me. But now I smiled, shook my head slightly, and leaned back in my chair. "Honestly," I said, "I don't think about them anymore." Maya tilted her head, not even a little. I chuckled, not even a little. Her eyes lit up, recognizing the weight of that statement. "So what changed?" I exhaled. I realized that success isn't about making others regret losing you. It's about making yourself proud of who you've become. She nodded, slowly scribbling something down. "That's powerful." It's the truth. And it was. I hadn't built Vanguard Solutions out of spite. I had built it because I wanted more myself, because I refused to let someone else's rejection define my worth. And the second, I stopped living for revenge and started living for my own fulfillment. That was the moment I truly won. A month later, I was invited to speak at the annual Business Innovation Conference, one of the most prestigious industry events in the country. It was the kind of event I would have never been invited to a year ago. The kind where only the elite spoke. And yet, there I was, walking onto that stage as the keynote speaker. As I stood before thousands of executives, investors, and entrepreneurs, I felt none of the nerves I once would have because I belonged there, because I had earned it. I stepped up to the podium, adjusted the mic, and let my gaze sweep over the crowd. Then I began. A year ago, I was told I wasn't good enough. The room went still. I was told that my background made me unworthy, that because I didn't come from wealth or power, I would never belong in the circles that define this industry. A murmur ran through the audience. I let the silence sit before continuing. But here's what I learned. Success isn't given, it's built. And the people who try to lock you out, they only win if you let them. The murmurs turned into nods of agreement. I let a small smile touch my lips. I stand here today not because someone opened a door for me, but because I built my own. The applause started slow, then it exploded. And in that moment I knew I had officially rewritten the narrative. I wasn't the man the Whitmore threw away. I was the man who didn't need them at all. That night, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, looking out over the city. Marcus leaned against the railing beside me, sipping his whiskey. "So, what now?" I exhaled, slowly watching the skyline glow. "Now," I said, "now I just live." He smirked. No more proving people wrong? I chuckled. I already did that. He nodded. Damn right you did. I lifted my glass to the life we built. Marcus clinked his glass against mine to never needing closure from anyone but yourself. I took a sip, letting the warmth settle in my chest, because he was right. I didn't need Victoria's regret. I didn't need Eleanor approval. I didn't need anyone to recognize my success except me, and that was the greatest victory of all. Not all victories are loud. Some come in the form of walking away without looking back. Some come in the form of peace. Some come when you finally realize you don't need closure from the past, when you're too busy building your future. And me? I was finally free. Because the only thing more powerful than proving them wrong is realizing you don't have to prove anything at all.